Yesterday, Misano thought it saw weakness. Yesterday, the land of booze thought it saw cracks. Yesterday, the Rossi church thought its ghost had won one back. But here's the truth you don't print on a timing sheet. Marc Marquez did not lose to Marco Bezzecchi. He lost to gravel. And gravel doesn't sign autographs. Gravel doesn't lift trophies. Gravel just waits. And yesterday, for the first time since Jerez, it got him. The crowd booed like hyenas. But deep down, every single one of them knew what they just witnessed. A kingpin bleed for 1 second in enemy territory. That wasn't victory. That was warning. And warnings have consequences. Let's break the sprint for what it really was. Lap 1, lights go out. Marc doesn't even hesitate. He carves Quartararo at the start, carves Alex at turn 2, 2 blades to clear the path. He's already in second, already behind Bezzecchi, already setting up the hunt. And Bez throws everything in the early laps like a man running from a ghost. Half a second gap, burning the rear, leaning deeper than he can sustain. Turn 14, lap 5, Bez nearly folds the front, miracle save. But miracles are poison when you're being hunted. Marc sees it, smells it, locks in like a wolf on a trembling deer. Turn 6, lap 6, the cut comes. Bez twitches, Marc slices. Ducati number 93 hits the front. Crowd gasps, the sprint should have been over, but then came turn 15. The so-called easy corner, the insult of Misano, the corner where no one crashes unless fate decides to spit on you. Marc had done the difficult part, pass Bezzecchi, break his rhythm, position himself to gap. But killers don't wait for applause. Killers finish fast. He wanted half a second gap by the next sector. He wanted Bez erased before the Rossi fans could even chant. So he pushed 1 inch wider, carried 1 degree more front load, and the GP25, the red weapon of Ducati, snapped out. The front folded. Marc skidded across the gravel, arms flailing, trying to save it, but gravel doesn't forgive. And just like that, the sprint died. 8 consecutive sprint wins gone. A streak shattered not by rivals, but by one mistake at the easiest point on the map. That's irony Misano doesn't deserve. Bezzecchi wins on paper, but not in reality. Because here's the thing, Bez never beat Marc. He survived him. Survival isn't victory. When you're being stalked by a predator and the predator trips on a rock, you don't become a lion. You stay a rabbit who got lucky. That's Bezzecchi. His corner speed looks shiny, but when Marc was on him, his rhythm already cracked. The front nearly folded under his desperation. He had no answers for the red storm about to gap him. And then fate gave him a gift. That's not triumph, that's charity. And Alex? Let's not dress it up. Alex Marquez crossed the line second. But what did it mean? Nothing. Without Marc behind him, he's just another Ducati silhouette. His podium was hollow, a shadow without gravity. Alex shines when Marc lets him shine. Barcelona proved that. Marc lifted, Alex won. Yesterday proved it again. Marc crashed. Alex was left to play in a vacuum. He's good, but not lethal. He's a supporting act, not the headliner. Without Marc, Alex has no orbit, and he knows it. Now let's talk about the psychology of this crash. Because Marc came out after, smiling, relaxed, telling the press nobody is perfect. He said it was the easiest corner, said tire temperature wasn't right, said maybe he forced too much. Don't let that fool you. That's not peace. That's mask. Marc has learned how to bleed in silence. He doesn't show frustration in front of cameras anymore. He doesn't break helmets or storm out. He puts on the relaxed face, shrugs, and lets the paddock think he's calm. But killers don't heal that way. Inside, he's carving the memory into his bones. Inside, he's filing yesterday under debts to be collected. You know why? Because this wasn't about points. The title is already dead. Marc leads by 173 points. The championship is a corpse walking. Yesterday wasn't about survival. It was about domination. And domination slipped in the gravel. That's what burns him. Not the DNF, not the lost sprint, the lost chance to execute Bezzecchi in his own backyard. That's the wound. That's the scar. Misano is not neutral ground. Misano is enemy territory. Rossi's temple. The land that booed Marc for a decade, cursed his name, treated him as the villain of their story. Every time he rides here, it's war. When he wins here, it's sacrilege. When he crashes here, it's a party for the Rossi faithful. Yesterday, they booed as he slid across gravel, cheered like jackals when he picked himself up. They thought they'd broken him. They thought the god had stumbled. But they don't understand how killers operate. A killer doesn't die from one cut. A killer learns. A killer stores the taste of blood and comes back with sharper teeth. That's why today, the main race, isn't normal anymore. It's no longer about points or math. It's about revenge. The gravel insulted him. The crowd insulted him. Bezzecchi got gifted glory. Alex floated in his shadow. Today is Marc's execution ground. Today he isn't riding for Ducati stats. He isn't riding for history. He's riding to erase the shame of yesterday. He's riding to show Misano what happens when the kingpin decides he's had enough of your games. And when Marc rides for revenge, no one is safe. Not Bez with his early lap fire. Not Alex with his podium dreams. Not Fabio trying to hold him for a few laps. Not the VR46 boys dreaming of podiums in Rossi's land. None of them. Because Marc has answers for everything. Every launch. Every move. Every strike. He dissects rivals corner by corner. He pressures them until they twitch. He dives when they least expect. He gaps when they think they can hold. That's what yesterday stole from him. And that's what today will give back in blood. The paddock should be trembling because the last time Marc crashed in a sprint was Jerez. What happened after? He went on a streak of absolute slaughter, Grands Prix, sprints, execution after execution. He hasn't lost control of a race since. He's turned the Ducati into an executioner's chair. And now Misano has given him a reason to ride angry again. You don't want Marc angry. You don't want Marc with a debt to settle. You don't want Marc lining up with booze in his ears and gravel in his memory. Because that man doesn't race. That man kills. Yesterday was the warning. Today is the massacre. Once the lights go out, expect him to strike on lap 1. Don't expect patience. Don't expect him to shadow Bezzecchi for 5 laps again. Expect turn 1 brutality. Expect dive bombs that leave Bez gasping. Expect exits that gap riders before they know what's happening. Expect Marc to turn Misano into silence, because the only way to shut booze is to make them choke on disbelief. When he crosses the line today, watch the gap. Count it. Print it. That number will be the definition of revenge. It won't just be seconds on a clock. It'll be a message carved into Misano's asphalt. Yesterday was a mistake. Today is execution. Marc doesn't crash twice in enemy land. Marc doesn't bleed twice in the same gravel. The kingpin never repeats humiliation. He takes humiliation and turns it into annihilation. Bezzecchi thinks yesterday was his glory. Alex thinks yesterday proved he can podium. Fabio dreams of blocking for a few laps. The VR46 garage dreams of podium photos in Rossi's backyard. Here's the blunt truth. All those dreams die once Marc decides it's time. All those strategies collapse once number 93 rolls. You can line up home heroes, fanboys, engineers, prayers. It doesn't matter. Because Marc carries something none of them can build, none of them can fake. Killer instinct. You don't coach that. You don't plan for that. You don't stop that. To beat Marc today, the home heroes, the Rossi boys, need to put on the show of their lives. To beat Marc today, Bezzecchi needs to launch perfectly. Quartararo needs to hold him for laps. Alex needs to pressure Bez up front. And the VR46 camp needs to dream harder than they've ever dreamed. That's the only way you get the race of ages. That's the only way you even delay him. But here's the problem. Marc has answers for all of it. Every plan, every strike, every desperate move. He knows the script before they write it. He dismantles strategies corner by corner. I'm not being dramatic. I'm telling you the law of war. You will see it today in Rossi's land. You will see how revenge is taken. Marc Marquez crashed in the easiest part of Misano. Marc Marquez bled in gravel. Marc Marquez lost his streak. That was yesterday. Today, Misano burns. Today, the boos choke. Today, the kingpin rides not for points, not for mercy, not for history, but for revenge. And when the checkered flag drops, you'll count the gap, and you'll know. This is how killers repay humiliation. This is how the kingpin reminds the world who he is.